For centuries, an invisible war has raged over the soul of Africa. Not one fought with swords or armies, but with beliefs, rituals, and stories. On one side, centuries-old African spirituality, deeply rooted in the land, the ancestors, and nature itself. On the other, organized religions, Christianity and Islam, carried by colonizers, missionaries, and traders, reshaping the continent's spiritual landscape. The question is simple yet profound: who truly holds the key to the African soul? Millions live unaware that this battle continues today, often within themselves. Some feel drawn to the sacred wisdom of their ancestors, sensing a connection to forces beyond the material world. Others follow church or mosque teachings, seeking salvation through structured doctrines. But what happens when these paths collide? When faith and tradition pull in opposite directions, the soul becomes a battlefield. African spirituality is more than rituals, it is a philosophy of life. Every river, tree, and mountain holds meaning. Ancestors are not forgotten, they guide, protect, and demand respect. Life is viewed as interconnected, a web where actions ripple through generations. This worldview shapes morality, purpose, and identity, offering a sense of belonging. Many organized religions struggle to replicate. Religion, meanwhile, offers clarity, structure, and community. It promises salvation, moral guidance, and hope of an afterlife. It simplifies the complex, codifies ethics, and often provides a clear path to spiritual fulfillment. Yet in Africa, it also carries a shadow: centuries of cultural suppression, forced conversions, and tension with indigenous practices. Many Africans wrestle with the question: can you honor both without losing yourself? In this video, we peel back the layers of this spiritual tug-of-war. We'll explore the origins of African spirituality, the arrival and influence of organized religion, and the personal and cultural conflicts that arise when they meet. By the end, you'll see not just a battle for belief, but a fight for identity, power, and the soul itself. Long before missionaries arrived, Africa's spiritual landscape was already vast and intricate. Communities across the continent developed systems of belief that connected the living with the unseen world. From the deserts of the Sahara to the rainforests of the Congo, spirituality was not just a practice, it was life itself. Every action, ritual, and tradition held profound meaning, linking humans, nature, and ancestors in a delicate balance that guided daily existence and long-term decisions. At the heart of African spirituality lies ancestral reverence. Ancestors are not merely memories. They are active participants in the lives of the living. Families maintained shrines, performed offerings, and sought guidance through divination, believing that ancestors could influence health, wealth, and community harmony. These practices reinforced social cohesion, reminding every member of the community that their actions reverberated across generations, preserving balance and moral order. Nature itself was considered sacred. Rivers, mountains, forests, and even certain animals were imbued with spiritual significance. Water sources were often seen as homes of spirits, forests as the domain of gods or guardians, and animals as messengers or reflections of human traits. Living in harmony with nature was not optional. It was a moral imperative, a principle that ensured the survival of communities and maintained a cosmic equilibrium between humans and the world around them. African spiritual practices were diverse yet interconnected. Divination, drumming, dance, and storytelling were not forms of entertainment. They were tools to communicate with the unseen world. Rituals marked life's milestones: birth, initiation, marriage, and death, while seasonal festivals aligned with agricultural cycles. These traditions reinforced the rhythm between humans, the earth, and the cosmos, reminding individuals that they were part of a larger spiritual ecosystem. Spiritual specialists, such as priests, diviners, and healers, held pivotal roles. They mediated between humans and the spirit world, interpreting omens, healing illnesses, and maintaining both moral and cosmic order. Their authority extended beyond the spiritual realm, shaping governance, community law, and cultural memory. These figures ensured that knowledge was transmitted accurately, preserving the integrity and continuity of spiritual practice across generations. Colonialism and the spread of organized religion brought profound disruption. European powers often dismissed African spiritual practices as primitive or malevolent, while Islamic influences sometimes imposed new beliefs on existing communities. Sacred sites were destroyed, rituals outlawed, and spiritual leaders marginalized. Yet, despite these pressures, African spirituality demonstrated remarkable resilience. Many practices adapted, blending with new beliefs in subtle ways, creating hybrid systems that persisted despite centuries of suppression. African spirituality was not merely a precursor to religion, it was a fully developed worldview. It explained natural phenomena, social structures, and personal experiences. It offered moral guidance, social cohesion, and psychological comfort. Understanding its roots reveals a civilization deeply attuned to the spiritual dimension of life, with wisdom that has endured for millennia. By exploring these origins, we begin to see why the soul of Africa has always been fiercely guarded, and why this battle with organized religion continues to resonate today. The arrival of organized religion in Africa marked a turning point in the continent's spiritual landscape. Christianity and Islam did not emerge in isolation. They were carried by traders, missionaries, and conquerors, each bringing a worldview vastly different from the one Africans had cultivated for centuries. These new faiths promised salvation, moral clarity, and a connection to a global spiritual community, but they also challenged established practices and beliefs. Christianity first spread through North Africa before moving into the sub-Saharan regions. Missionaries arrived with Bibles, schools, and churches, presenting a vision of morality and divine order that often conflicted with indigenous rituals. While some communities welcomed education and new ideas, others saw it as an intrusion into sacred spaces and ancestral authority. Conversion was rarely simple. It demanded not only acceptance of new doctrines, but also the abandonment, or at least modification, of deeply rooted traditions. Islam entered Africa through trade routes across the Sahara and along the East African coast. Merchants brought not just goods, but ideas, laws, and spiritual practices that blended seamlessly with commerce. Unlike colonial Christianity, Islam often adapted to local customs, creating a fusion of cultural and religious practices. Yet, even with flexibility, tension arose as Islamic teachings sometimes contradicted traditional norms, especially around ancestor veneration and ritual ceremonies. Both religions introduced powerful tools of community organization. Churches and mosques became centers for education, social support, and political influence. They offered a sense of belonging and structure that resonated in societies undergoing rapid change. Yet, in the process, they often positioned themselves as the sole arbiters of moral and spiritual truth, inadvertently sidelining indigenous beliefs and casting African spiritual systems as inferior or misguided. The collision between these organized religions and African spirituality was not merely philosophical, it was deeply personal. Families and communities were divided. Some embraced the new faiths wholeheartedly, attending services and learning scripture, while still maintaining secret ties to ancestral rituals. Others rejected the outsiders' teachings entirely, viewing them as threats to identity and sovereignty. This created a complex mosaic of belief where syncretism, resistance, and adaptation coexisted in tension. Over time, organized religion left a lasting imprint on African societies. Many cultural practices were reframed through religious lenses. Rituals were Christianized, moral codes were aligned with scripture, and sacred spaces were repurposed. At the same time, the resilience of African spirituality ensured that it persisted, often in hidden or hybrid forms. This interplay laid the groundwork for the spiritual tug-of-war that continues today, where identity, faith, and power are constantly negotiated. The story of organized religion in Africa is not one of simple conquest or replacement. It is a story of adaptation, resistance, and negotiation. By understanding how Christianity and Islam arrived, spread, and interacted with indigenous beliefs, we gain insight into the forces shaping modern African spirituality. The battle for the soul was never about destroying faith. It was about redefining it, challenging traditions, and reshaping the spiritual map of a continent. Today, the battle for Africa's soul is as real as ever, though it wears a subtler face. In cities and villages alike, people navigate a complex landscape of beliefs. Churches and mosques dominate public life, offering guidance, hope, and a sense of community. Meanwhile, traditional spiritual practices persist in homes, markets, and hidden shrines, often coexisting quietly with organized religion. This duality reflects the resilience of African spirituality, even under centuries of external pressure. For many Africans, the tension is personal. A person may attend Sunday services yet consult a diviner on Thursday. Parents may baptize their children while still honoring ancestors at home. These choices are not contradictions. They are survival strategies, ways of preserving cultural identity while participating in global religious communities. Yet they also create internal conflicts as individuals wrestle with questions of loyalty, faith, and authenticity. Syncretism has emerged as a powerful response. In West Africa, Yoruba traditions merge with Christianity in practices like Orisha worship alongside church attendance. In East Africa, Islamic prayers are sometimes combined with offerings to spirits for protection or prosperity. These hybrid practices demonstrate creativity, resilience, and the human need for a spiritual connection that fully addresses life's uncertainties. It is a compromise, yet one that honors both worlds. The struggle is also societal. Organized religions often dominate education, politics, and social norms, creating pressure to conform. African spiritual practices are sometimes stigmatized, dismissed as superstition, or suppressed. This imbalance fuels tension and secrecy as families pass down knowledge quietly to preserve continuity. Modern technology has created new arenas for this battle, from online debates to viral videos questioning morality, faith, and tradition. Economic and social factors intensify the conflict. In regions facing poverty, illness, or political instability, people seek spiritual solutions in multiple directions. Churches may promise miracles, mosques offer structured guidance, and ancestral rituals provide a sense of immediate protection and connection. The choice is rarely purely spiritual. It is practical, emotional, and psychological. The soul becomes a site of negotiation, survival, and hope. Yet despite the conflict, there is also harmony. Increasingly, Africans are reclaiming spirituality on their own terms, choosing what to adopt, adapt, or reject. Festivals, rituals, and prayers coexist alongside sermons and scripture readings, creating a mosaic of faith that is uniquely African. The battle for the soul is not always destructive. It can be generative, fostering new forms of identity, creativity, and belonging. Ultimately, this ongoing spiritual negotiation shapes who Africans are today. It is a battle fought quietly in homes, in hearts, and in communities, reflecting centuries of history, colonial encounters, and resilience. African spirituality has not been erased. It has evolved, intertwined with religion in ways that challenge simple definitions of faith. The struggle continues, but it is also a testament to the enduring power of belief, identity, and the human spirit. African spirituality is often misunderstood, both within Africa and beyond. Many outsiders label it as primitive, superstitious, or even dangerous, overlooking its complexity, ethical frameworks, and deep philosophical underpinnings. Such misconceptions erase centuries of cultural knowledge and reduce vibrant practices to caricatures, creating a false narrative that organized religions are inherently superior. Within Africa, these misunderstandings persist as well. Some religious communities view ancestral veneration or divination as incompatible with faith, branding practitioners as backward or sinful. This judgment fuels conflict and shame, forcing many to practice their traditions secretly. The result is a persistent tension between public adherence to religion and private spiritual loyalty, complicating personal and communal identity. Controversies also arise around morality. Critics of African spirituality often claim it encourages harmful practices, while supporters argue that morality is deeply embedded in traditional systems. Rules around social behavior, respect for elders, and communal responsibility have guided African societies for centuries. When these systems are dismissed, it not only misrepresents the tradition, but also undermines social cohesion. Another source of controversy is ritual practices. Blood sacrifices, spirit possession, or use of charms can trigger fear or misunderstanding. Yet these rituals are symbolic, highly regulated, and socially controlled in their cultural context. They serve purposes like protection, healing, or connecting with ancestors, not mindless superstition. Misinterpretation by outsiders often leads to sensationalized narratives in media, reinforcing stigma. The clash with organized religion further fuels debates. Religious leaders may denounce indigenous practices as incompatible with Christianity or Islam, framing spiritual choice as a binary, either the true faith or a misguided path. This ignores centuries of syncretism and the reality that African spirituality adapts, evolves, and often coexists peacefully with other beliefs. Modern controversies extend into public spaces. Schools, hospitals, and even politics sometimes grapple with accommodating spiritual practices. From prayer rituals to healing ceremonies, questions of legality, ethics, and public health collide with tradition, creating debates that are often framed in terms of modernity versus tradition. These debates reveal that the struggle is not just spiritual, it is social, political, and cultural. Despite these misconceptions and controversies, African spirituality continues to thrive. By confronting stereotypes and engaging critically with its practices, communities reclaim their heritage and assert the legitimacy of their beliefs. Awareness, education, and dialogue are crucial to resolving conflicts and fostering understanding, demonstrating that spirituality is not a battle to be won, but a dialogue to be embraced. African spirituality is at a crossroads. Rapid urbanization, globalization, and digital communication are reshaping how traditions are practiced, shared, and understood. Online platforms now host discussions on ancestral wisdom, rituals, and spiritual philosophies, allowing younger generations to access, question, and reinterpret practices in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. Technology has become a new medium for preservation and revival. Education and cultural initiatives are also playing a crucial role. Universities, museums, and cultural organizations are documenting rituals, oral histories, and spiritual teachings. By giving African spirituality academic legitimacy, these efforts challenge misconceptions and ensure that knowledge is passed down systematically. This validation helps protect practices from being dismissed as folklore or superstition. At the same time, organized religion remains influential. Christianity and Islam continue to grow across the continent, creating spaces for dialogue, conflict, and syncretism. Some Africans integrate elements of both systems into their daily lives, crafting hybrid spiritual identities. These hybrid forms demonstrate resilience and creativity, showing that faith can adapt without losing connection to its roots. Youth engagement will define the future. Young Africans are increasingly asserting control over how spirituality is practiced, blending tradition with modern lifestyles. Festivals, rituals, and music are being reimagined, while social media amplifies voices that advocate for ancestral respect and ethical living. This generation is shaping spirituality not as a relic of the past, but as a dynamic, evolving force. Economic, social, and environmental challenges also influence the trajectory of African spirituality. Climate change, urban poverty, and migration spur renewed interest in rituals for protection, healing, and guidance. Spiritual practices respond to these pressures, offering hope and community resilience. They evolve, yet retain core values that have guided African societies for centuries. Finally, the future of African spirituality lies in dialogue and coexistence. Understanding its complexities, respecting its ethical frameworks, and engaging with its adaptive nature can bridge gaps with organized religion. Rather than a battle to be fought, it becomes a collaborative exploration of identity, morality, and meaning. The soul of Africa continues to evolve, resilient, multifaceted, and profoundly alive. The story of African spirituality versus organized religion is not simply a clash of faiths, it is a narrative of resilience, adaptation, and identity. From ancestral worship to the spread of Christianity and Islam, Africa's spiritual landscape has always been dynamic, shaped by both internal evolution and external pressures. Understanding this history reveals why spiritual choices remain deeply personal, complex, and often hybridized. The tension we see today is rooted in centuries of cultural negotiation. Misconceptions, controversies, and societal pressures have created spaces of conflict, secrecy, and adaptation. Yet these challenges have not destroyed African spirituality. They have forced it to evolve, blending tradition with modernity and integrating aspects of global religions without losing its core essence. Hybrid practices, youth engagement, and digital revival demonstrate the enduring power of African spirituality. It survives not by opposing organized religion outright, but by finding ways to coexist, adapt, and assert relevance in changing times. This is a testament to the flexibility and depth of African spiritual systems, which continue to guide ethics, social behavior, and personal meaning. At the same time, the story reminds us that faith is deeply personal. Each choice to pray, honor ancestors, attend church, or blend traditions reflects a negotiation between identity, culture, and belief. African spirituality and organized religion are not enemies, they are overlapping forces that shape lives, communities, and moral frameworks in ways that are often complementary, sometimes contradictory, but always meaningful. The untold battle for the soul is ultimately about awareness. Recognizing the value, complexity, and legitimacy of African spirituality fosters understanding, reduces prejudice, and empowers individuals to make conscious spiritual choices. It invites dialogue rather than conflict, and celebrates the continent's rich heritage rather than diminishing it. As we reflect on this intricate tapestry of beliefs, one truth stands out. African spirituality is alive, evolving, and profoundly influential. It teaches that identity, faith, and morality are not fixed, but dynamic and interconnected. The soul of Africa is not lost. It is thriving, adapting, and shaping the future in ways both visible and hidden. So, whether you follow organized religion, ancestral traditions, or a blend of both, remember this: understanding, respect, and curiosity are the keys to connecting with the spiritual legacy of Africa. Like, subscribe, and join us on this journey of discovery, because the story of your soul is just as vital as the story of the continents.